a barbecue when you can have poached and oven roasted baby back ribs? So delicious. You could do this in February. I don't care if you have a grill, what the climate. So easy and wonderful. What you first need to do is to make a poaching liquid. Now you could just use water, but why use water when you can make it more flavorful? Here I have some simmering water that has carrots, sliced leeks and celery, and coarsely chopped onions. And what you do is you bring this to a boil, you turn it to a simmer, and you can cook it anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 hours. What we're doing is flavoring the water so that anything I put into this, whether it's a chicken or it's these ribs, the meat itself gets imbued with the flavor of the vegetables. And it's very easy to do this if you do what I do, which is I keep some frozen chopped, coarsely chopped vegetables in the freezer. This is carrots, leeks, celery, onions. I cut them up on a day when I've got some time, and I throw them in the freezer so that way when I want to poach something, I don't have to run to the store. I don't have to cut anything. All I do is dump these into a pot and bring it to a simmer, which is what I already did. So now what I'm going to do is take my baby back ribs. These are whole ribs that are cut in half. By the way, the same recipe is applicable to the larger pork ribs and to the more connective beef short ribs. They just cook a little bit longer, different amount of time, and I'm going to tell you how to do that. You submerge them in this vegetable broth. You bring this to a bubble through the center to a boil. Then you cover it, and you're going to simmer the baby back ribs for 30 minutes. If you're cooking the larger pork ribs, you're going to cook them for 45 minutes. If you're cooking beef short ribs, you're going to cook them for an hour and 15 minutes at a simmer, covered. Then, which I've already done, what's important is if you've got the time to after you've simmered them, you want to let the ribs, you take them off of the stove and you let them settle in the broth. And actually, I like to almost let them cool in the broth. When you're cooking something at a simmer, what happens is a lot of the flavor compounds in the meat itself ends up leaching into the liquid. So what you want to do is to encourage the meat to settle down and actually reabsorb those flavor compounds. It also makes the meat much more succulent this way. This is when I poach chickens, ribs, whether they're short ribs, the baby ribs, all of them is the same thing. You let it settle in here. Then all you do is take your poached ribs, put them on a shallow baking sheet. First I'm putting them bone side up because I'm going to baste them with barbecue sauce. You could do this part, an hour or two before you want to roast them. And you just baste them liberally on both sides. You could use your favorite barbecue sauce. I certainly hope you're going to make mine. I hope that my barbecue sauce becomes your favorite. This is the only barbecue sauce that my kids will eat. So you do this on both sides. I'm going to turn them over. I hear Rosebud tiptoeing around here. She knows when I have pork, when I have chicken, she's never far from me. Nice. I'm going to make this nice and liberal. Now, before I want to roast, I want my oven to be preheating to anywhere between 375 and 425, depending on how soon you want to eat. You're really, going for the look because these ribs are already cooked. So what we're going for is a sexy, charred looking exterior. So it takes anywhere from 20 minutes to 30 minutes. Again, to recap, these are my poached baby back ribs that I've basted in barbecue sauce. The baby backs have been simmering for 30 minutes in a vegetable broth. Then I let them cool in the broth to become more succulent and to absorb the flavor compounds. Then I took them out with tongs. I put them onto my baking sheet, a shallow baking sheet. It's lined with parchment paper to help me with cleanup. And then I just basted them liberally on both sides with my homemade barbecue sauce. And now they're going to roast at 400 degrees for, 20, 30 minutes. I'll see how they look. Got it? Okay, be right back. Now, how gorgeous is that? You think you can get better than that in a restaurant? I challenge you to get better than that in a restaurant, or as good as that in a restaurant. These are homemade oven roasted baby back ribs. What you do is you just stack them on a platter. If you've got kids, you would, of course, cut these racks in half. People have no shame when it comes to eating ribs. So you need to get a half a rack. For an adult, I'm not kidding, a half a rack per person, then have an extra one, not per person, just for somebody who actually can handle more than a half a rack. So, here's another one of my personal family favorites. I hope you love it as much as I do.